Welcome back, Coinology. Imagine holding a tiny copper-colored coin between your fingers, something so common that millions of people pass it every single day without even a second glance, and yet that same small object carries a story of power, history, controversy, secret varieties, minting technology, American identity, and shocking claims of extreme value that have made collectors stop, stare, and search through jars and drawers all around the world. This is the 1-cent coin dated 2010 with the D mint mark, a single penny that at first looks ordinary, simple, almost boring, but when you slow down and truly look at it, when you understand why it was made, how it was made, what changed in that year, and what collectors believe might exist in rare forms, it suddenly transforms from pocket change into a symbol of mystery and potential fortune. The year 2010 sits at a very special crossroads in the long history of the United States 1-cent coin, because it represents the return of the Lincoln Memorial design after a short but historic interruption, and the Denver Mint, marked by the small but powerful letter D, played a massive role in producing these coins for circulation during a time when America was still recovering from economic uncertainty and debates were raging about whether the penny should even continue to exist at all. The 2010 D 1-cent coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the most important minting facilities in the United States, a place known for producing billions of coins that flow into everyday commerce. The mint mark D appears just below the date on the obverse side, and that tiny letter tells a huge story. It tells us where the coin was born, which machine struck it, which metal planchets were fed into the presses, and which potential errors or variations could exist. In 2010, the Denver Mint produced well over 1 billion Lincoln cents, making the 2010 D penny common in raw numbers, but common does not always mean worthless. In the world of coin collecting, value is not just about how many coins were made, it is about condition, rarity within the population, errors, die varieties, experimental strikes, and the stories that surround specific examples. To truly understand this coin, you must begin with its physical nature. The 2010 D 1-cent coin weighs approximately 2.5 grams, following the modern Lincoln cent standard introduced in 1982 when the composition changed from solid copper to copper-plated zinc. This means the core of the coin is zinc, making up about 97.5% of its composition, while the outer layer is a thin plating of copper, about 2.5%, giving it that familiar reddish color. The diameter measures 19.05 millimeters, and the thickness is roughly 1.52 millimeters. These measurements may sound technical, but they matter deeply to collectors, because any deviation in weight, thickness, or composition can signal something extraordinary, such as a wrong planchet error or an off-metal strike, and those are the kinds of coins that can explode in value. The symbol of the coin, the very idea of what a 1-cent piece represents, is deeply rooted in American culture. The penny symbolizes humility, everyday labor, the idea that even the smallest unit has value. It is the coin of charity jars, wishes, and sayings like "a penny saved is a penny earned." By 2010, however, the penny had become controversial. The cost to produce 1 cent was higher than its face value, leading to heated debates about whether the coin should be eliminated. And yet, the 2010 D penny was still produced in massive numbers, a silent protest in metal against the idea that small things no longer mattered. The design of the 2010 D penny is especially important, because 2010 marked the return of the Lincoln Memorial Reverse after the Special 4 design series issued in 2009 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Those 2009 designs told the story of Lincoln's life, from his birth cabin to his presidency. In 2010, the United States Mint decided to return to the classic Lincoln Memorial design, but with a crucial modern update. The obverse still features the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, originally designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909, making it the longest-running portrait of the same person on a U.S. coin. Lincoln faces to the right, his expression calm, thoughtful, and resolute, a reminder of leadership during division. On the obverse, you see the word liberty to the left of Lincoln's profile, the date 2010 to the right, and the phrase "In God We Trust" arching along the top rim. Beneath the date sits the D mint mark, small but powerful. Every letter, every curve, every tiny detail was carefully engraved into steel dies and then pressed into metal under enormous pressure. Any weakness, doubling, misalignment, or unusual texture in these elements can create a collectible error. The reverse side of the 2010 D penny shows the Lincoln Memorial, with its clean lines and symmetrical columns. Above it reads United States of America, and beneath that the motto E pluribus unum. At the bottom is the denomination 1 cent. One of the most fascinating details of the Lincoln Memorial design is that a tiny seated statue of Lincoln is visible between the central columns, making this one of the few US coins where the same person appears on both sides. For collectors, the sharpness of the steps, the clarity of the columns, and the overall strike quality are crucial. Weak strikes, filled dies, or doubled details can significantly increase interest. Now comes the part that captures the imagination and fuels viral videos, late-night searches, and bold claims: the idea that a 2010 1-cent coin could be worth enormous sums of money, with figures as high as $156,000 million being whispered, claimed, and debated. In reality, the standard circulated 2010 penny is worth exactly 1 cent. Even uncirculated examples typically sell for only a small premium. But the world of coin collecting is not about the average coin, it is about the extraordinary exception. When people talk about massive values, they are usually referring to hypothetical, unique, or ultra-rare error coins, experimental strikes, or coins with provenance that sets them apart from everything else known. There is persistent speculation about 2010 pennies struck on the wrong metal, such as leftover copper planchets, foreign planchets, or experimental alloys. If a genuine, authenticated 2010 Lincoln cent were discovered struck on a solid copper planchet or an entirely different metal never officially released, it would rewrite numismatic history. Such a coin, especially if unique, could command staggering prices at auction, not because of its face value, but because of its uniqueness and the story it tells about the minting process. Another category of potential high-value coins includes dramatic mint errors. Imagine a 2010 penny with a full double die obverse, where every letter appears doubled so clearly it can be seen without magnification. Imagine a coin struck multiple times, rotated, off-center by a massive margin, or with a die cap effect creating a bottle-top shape. These kinds of errors do exist, and while most sell for hundreds or thousands, a truly unique and visually stunning example could reach extraordinary prices, especially if collectors compete fiercely for it. Condition also plays a massive role. A 2010 penny graded at the absolute top of the scale, such as MS-70 by a major grading service, would be incredibly rare. Modern coins often suffer from contact marks, poor strikes, or handling damage even before entering circulation. A flawless example preserved from the moment of striking could command a strong premium. While not worth millions on its own, it demonstrates how value scales with perfection. The history behind the 2010 penny is inseparable from the history of the United States itself. In 2010, America was navigating economic recovery, technological change, and cultural shifts. Coins were becoming less relevant in everyday transactions as digital payments grew. Yet the mint continued producing pennies by the billions, each one a small piece of continuity in a rapidly changing world. Collectors decades from now will look back at these coins as artifacts from a transitional era, when physical money still mattered deeply even as its future was questioned. As rumors, stories, and sensational claims circulate online, the 2010 penny has become a symbol of the idea that treasure might be hiding in plain sight. People search through rolls, examine dates with magnifying glasses, weigh coins on digital scales, and dream that one small difference could change everything. This is the emotional power of coin collecting. It is not just about metal, it is about hope, curiosity, and connection to history. The deeper you travel into the world of the 2010 1-cent coin, the more you realize that this small piece of metal is not just a unit of money but a witness to complex minting science, industrial precision, and human error, all happening at lightning speed inside the Denver Mint. Every single 2010 penny was born from a process that looks almost mechanical and cold, yet it is exactly in that process that the magic of rarity can appear. Long coils of metal were rolled flat into sheets, then punched into thousands of round blanks called planchets. These blanks were cleaned, heated, polished, and then fed into massive coining presses that struck them between two engraved dies with enough force to lock every microscopic detail into the surface. Most of the time, this creates perfect, ordinary pennies. But sometimes something goes wrong, and when it does, history is created. Collectors who dream of finding a 2010 penny worth extraordinary money focus their attention on these moments of imperfection. A planchet might be too thin, too thick, or made of the wrong metal. A die might be cracked, doubled, misaligned, or partially clogged. The press might strike a coin twice or fail to strike it fully. Each of these events produces a coin that is different from every other one, and in a year like 2010, when billions of pennies were struck, even a 1 in a million error could still mean that only a handful exist. One of the most exciting possibilities is the wrong planchet error. This happens when a blank meant for another coin, such as a dime, a foreign coin, or even a leftover copper planchet from earlier years, accidentally gets fed into the penny press. The result is a penny design struck on the wrong metal. The weight will be wrong, the color will be wrong, and sometimes the size will be slightly off. Imagine a 2010D Lincoln cent struck on a solid copper blank instead of the normal copper-plated zinc. It would weigh about 3.11 grams instead of 2.5, and its ring, color, and feel would be completely different. If authenticated, such a coin would be an instant star in the numismatic world. Another powerful source of value is the double die. This occurs when the die that strikes the coin receives a misaligned impression during its creation, resulting in doubled letters, numbers, and design elements. A true doubled die is not just a blurry or damaged coin, it is a genuine duplication of the design itself. On a 2010D penny, this could appear as doubled dates, doubled letters in Liberty or In God We Trust, or even doubled details in Lincoln's portrait. The clearer and more dramatic the doubling, the more collectors desire it. Then there are off-center strikes, where the coin is not properly positioned when struck. The result can be a penny where part of the design is missing and part of the blank is exposed. If the date and mint mark are still visible, these coins can be extremely valuable. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more visual impact it has, and collectors love coins that immediately look strange and wrong. Clipped planchets are another fascinating category. Sometimes, when the metal sheet is punched, the blanks overlap slightly, creating a coin with a curved or straight clip missing from its edge. A 2010D penny with a clean, well-defined clip can be worth many times its face value. Multiple clips or dramatic shapes increase the value even more. Die cracks and die breaks also add to the mystery. As dies wear out, they can crack or even break apart, transferring raised lines or lumps onto the coins they strike. Some cracks are tiny, others are massive, creating what collectors call cuds, or a chunk of the design near the rim is missing and replaced by a blob of metal. These features are like fingerprints of the die's final moments before it was retired. When people talk about shocking numbers like $156,000 million, they are usually imagining the ultimate dream scenario, a 2010D penny that is not just rare, but absolutely unique, perhaps a prototype, a test strike, or a mint error so extreme that no other example is known. In the history of numismatics, unique coins have sold for millions because they represent something that cannot be replaced. A one-of-a-kind coin from a famous collection, with full authentication and a story that captivates the world, can reach prices that seem unbelievable. The key to unlocking any potential value is verification. A coin that looks strange or heavy or doubled must be carefully examined, weighed, and authenticated by a professional grading service. These services use microscopes, spectrometers, and expert eyes to determine whether a coin is a genuine mint error or just damaged after leaving the mint. Only coins that pass this scrutiny can enter the world of high-value collecting. As more people become interested in searching their change, the legend of the valuable 2010D penny continues to grow. Each jar of coins, each roll from the bank, becomes a potential treasure chest. Most will contain nothing special, but every once in a while, someone finds something extraordinary. That possibility keeps the hunt alive and turns an ordinary 1-cent coin into a symbol of endless curiosity and hope. And this is still only part of the story, because beyond errors in metal, there is the market itself, the collectors, the auctions, and the forces that turn rarity into fortune, which takes the journey of the 2010D penny even deeper. When you step into the world of the coin market, the 2010D 1-cent coin stops being just metal and starts becoming something closer to a living object, something whose value rises and falls based on human emotion, demand, stories, and competition between collectors. The market is not fixed like the printed number on the coin. It breathes, it moves, and it reacts to discoveries. A single newly found error can suddenly make thousands of people start searching through their change, driving up interest, prices, and excitement all over the world. In the professional coin market, coins are not just bought and sold raw. They are graded, sealed, and certified. A 2010D penny that looks perfect to the naked eye might only receive a grade of MS65 or MS66 because of microscopic scratches or weak strikes. But if one is found in almost flawless condition, it might receive MS68, MS69, or in incredibly rare cases MS70. Each step higher multiplies the value. This is because the population of coins in top grades is extremely small. Out of billions of 2010D pennies, only a tiny fraction were preserved well enough to achieve the highest grades. Collectors often focus on what is called population data. This tells how many coins of a certain type have been graded at each level. If only one or two 2010D pennies exist in the highest grade ever recorded, then those coins become the kings of their category. Wealthy collectors who want the very best example of every coin will compete for them, pushing prices to levels that seem crazy for something that originally cost 1 cent. Then there is the world of auction houses, where stories and emotions collide with money. When a rare or unique 2010D penny comes to auction, it is not just about the coin. It is about who owned it, how it was found, and how it fits into the bigger story of American coinage. A coin found in a roll by an ordinary person can become famous overnight if it turns out to be a new error or variety. That story adds fuel to the bidding. People are not just buying metal, they are buying history and drama. The internet has changed everything. Photos of unusual 2010D pennies spread across social media, forums, and video platforms. Some are real, some are misunderstood, and some are fake. But every image makes more people curious. More people search. More coins are examined. This increases the chances that something truly rare will be discovered. In this way, the 2010D penny has become part of a global treasure hunt. Even small differences can create a whole new variety. A tiny change in the position of a letter, a slightly different shape of a number, or a small shift in the design caused by a new die can produce what collectors call a variety. These varieties are cataloged, studied, and traded. Some are minor and worth only a few dollars. Others are major and become famous. The idea of a 2010D penny being worth an enormous sum is not really about the typical coin. It is about the dream that somewhere out there, hidden in circulation or tucked away in a forgotten collection, there might be something that no one has seen before. A unique strike. A test piece. A mint error that escaped into the world when it should have been destroyed. History has shown that this does happen. Coins have slipped through the system and later become legendary. At the same time, it is important to understand that most 2010D pennies will always be worth 1 cent. The magic of coin collecting is not that every coin is valuable, but that any coin could be. That balance between the ordinary and the extraordinary is what makes people keep looking. As time passes, fewer and fewer high-grade 2010D pennies will survive. They will get scratched, spent, lost, or damaged. The supply of perfect examples will shrink. Errors will be locked away in collections. And the story of this simple penny will continue to grow, shaped by the people who find, study, and cherish it. The journey of the 2010D 1 cent coin is far from over, because every day that passes adds another layer to its history, another chance for discovery, and another chapter in the long and fascinating life of a single cent. As the years move forward, the 2010D 1 cent coin begins to change its role in the world, slowly shifting from something that moves through millions of hands every day into something that more and more people start to set aside, save, and examine. Time is one of the most powerful forces in numismatics. It separates the ordinary from the special. Coins that once seemed endless begin to disappear from circulation, and only the best preserved examples survive. This is how even modern pennies can slowly gain importance. The 2010D penny is especially interesting because it represents the first year back to the Lincoln Memorial reverse after the special 2009 series. That alone gives it a historical marker. It is the coin that closed one chapter and opened another. Collectors who build complete Lincoln cent collections often want an example from every important design transition, and 2010D holds that place. Over decades, demand for well-preserved examples will always exist because of this role in the timeline of American coinage. There is also the psychological power of modern rarity. While billions of 2010D pennies were made, very few were carefully saved in perfect condition. Most went straight into circulation. They rubbed against other coins, fell onto hard surfaces, and lost their original mint luster. That bright, smooth surface that a coin has the moment it leaves the press is fragile. Once it is gone, it can never truly be restored. This means that truly pristine examples become scarcer every year. The idea of unbelievable value, of numbers that sound like fantasy, is driven by this shrinking pool of perfection combined with the possibility of unique errors. When collectors imagine a 2010D penny worth incredible money, they are imagining the absolute best or the absolute strangest. A coin with a flawless strike, blazing original color, and a grade that no other example has ever achieved. Or a coin that should not exist at all, struck on the wrong metal, with a dramatic error, or as a test piece that slipped out of the mint. The Denver Mint in 2010 was operating at high speed, producing coins around the clock. Machines were changed, dies were replaced, and metal supplies were constantly being loaded. Every change created a tiny window where something unusual could happen. A wrong blank could be fed into the press. A new die could be misaligned. A worn die could crack. Most of these mistakes are caught and removed, but not all of them. History proves that some escape into circulation. What makes this even more powerful is that every undiscovered coin is still out there somewhere. It could be sitting in a jar. It could be in a child's piggy bank. It could be lost in a drawer. This is why the hunt never ends. Every 2010 penny has the potential to be something more than it seems, even if the chances are tiny. Collectors often talk about the soul of a coin. It sounds poetic, but it is real in a way. A coin carries the energy of its time, the hands that have touched it, and the journey it has taken. A 2010 penny might have been in a grocery store, a gas station, a wallet, and 1,000 other places. Each mark on its surface is part of its story. But a coin that escaped all that wear, that stayed untouched and perfect, is like a time capsule from the moment it was born. The more people learn about these ideas, the more they become interested. A new generation of collectors is growing up in a digital world, yet they are drawn to physical objects with real history. The penny, humble and small, becomes a bridge between the past and the future, and so the legend of the 2010 1-cent coin continues to grow. It is no longer just about 1 cent. It is about curiosity, about searching, about the dream that something ordinary could turn out to be extraordinary. That dream keeps the story alive, and it keeps people looking, hoping that one day they will be the one who finds a penny that changes everything. By the time you reach this point in the story of the 2010 1-cent coin, you begin to see that its power is not locked only in metal, but in imagination, persistence, and the way human beings connect meaning to small objects. The penny has always been the smallest unit of American money, yet it carries the biggest emotional weight. It is the coin of wishes, of luck, of first savings, and of quiet hope. When that same coin is connected to the idea of hidden rarity, it becomes something even stronger. Collectors around the world approach the 2010 penny with different eyes. Some look for perfection, using magnification and careful lighting to examine every tiny detail of Lincoln's face, every line of the memorial, every curve of every letter. Others look for chaos, searching for cracks, shifts, double images, and strange shapes that prove something went wrong during minting. Both are chasing the same thing: difference. In numismatics, difference is value. What makes the 2010 penny especially fascinating is that it exists in enormous numbers, yet each one is technically unique. No two coins are struck in exactly the same way. Pressure, die wear, metal flow, and microscopic dust particles all change the result. Most of these differences are too small to matter, but sometimes they cross a threshold and become something collectors care about. That is where an ordinary penny can suddenly become extraordinary. The stories of great discoveries always start quietly. A person opens a roll of coins. Someone sorts through a jar. A collector looks through a bag from the bank. And then a strange coin appears. Maybe it weighs more than it should. Maybe the letters look doubled. Maybe part of the design is missing. At first, it might seem like damage. But after closer inspection, it might turn out to be a true mint error, a coin that should not exist in that form. When that happens, the entire market can change. A new variety or error can be named, cataloged, and studied. Collectors rush to find more examples. Prices rise. What was once just a 2010 penny becomes a famous coin with a story that spreads around the world. Even the idea of a 2010 penny being worth an unimaginable amount of money, even if it sounds exaggerated, reflects something real. It reflects how much people value rarity, story, and mystery. In the history of coin collecting, unique pieces have sold for millions because they represent moments when the rules were broken and something unexpected was created. The Denver Mint itself becomes part of the legend. It is not just a building. It is a place where art, engineering, and history come together. Every 2010 penny came out of that place, carrying with it the mark of the machines and people who made it. That tiny D connects the coin to a specific location and moment in time. As more years pass, the 2010 penny will keep changing in how it is seen. Today it is still mostly common. Tomorrow it may be remembered as part of an era when the penny was under threat of being eliminated, when the Lincoln Memorial design returned, and when the modern minting system was in full force. Future collectors will look back at these coins as pieces of a story that has not yet fully been told. Every penny you hold from 2010 with a D beneath the date is a small door into that story. Most will never be anything more than 1 cent. But the possibility that one could be something else is what makes people keep looking, keep learning, and keep believing that even the smallest coin can hold the biggest surprise. As the search for special 2010 D1 cent coins continues, something interesting happens inside the minds of collectors and ordinary people alike. They start to look at money differently. A penny is no longer just something to spend or ignore. It becomes something to study, to question, to turn over in the light and examine from every angle. That shift in perception is powerful, because once you start looking closely, you realize how much detail is packed into such a tiny object. Every 2010 D penny carries layers of information. The texture of Lincoln's coat, the fine lines in his hair, the tiny letters in the motto, the sharpness of the memorial columns, all of these details are the result of engraving, metal flow, and pressure. If any part of that process was slightly off, the coin becomes a record of that moment. It is like a frozen snapshot of a machine at work. Some collectors go even deeper, using microscopes and digital tools to map the surfaces of their coins. They look for die markers, small scratches or dots that prove a coin was struck from a specific die. When several coins share the same markers, it proves they are part of the same family, struck by the same piece of steel. This allows experts to track how dies wear out and how errors develop over time. A 2010 D penny might show an early stage of a die crack, while another shows the crack growing larger. Together, they tell a story of how that die lived and died. This kind of research turns simple coins into scientific objects. It also allows new discoveries to be made even years after the coins were struck. A variety that no one noticed in 2010 might be identified in 2030, when someone realizes that a certain tiny feature appears on multiple coins. Suddenly, a new chapter is added to the history of the 2010 D penny. The market responds to these discoveries. A newly identified variety can go from being worth nothing special to being worth hundreds or thousands of dollars almost overnight. Collectors who found examples early become lucky, while others scramble to catch up. This constant evolution keeps the hobby alive. There is also a quiet romance in the idea that such a small, humble object can be the subject of so much attention. The penny has been part of American life for more than a century. It has been in the hands of presidents, workers, children, and travelers. The 2010 D penny is part of that long chain, linking the past to the present. Even if most of these coins never become valuable, they still carry that connection. They remind us that history is not only found in museums and books, but also in our pockets. Every coin is a tiny piece of time, and so the story continues, not just in auction houses and collections, but in everyday places where pennies are still used, saved, and sometimes forgotten. Somewhere among them, the next great discovery could be waiting, and it might be a simple 2010 D penny that no one has looked at closely enough yet. As you move even further into the long journey of the 2010 D1 cent coin, you start to understand that its real power lies in how it connects people across generations. A coin struck in 2010 might one day be examined by a collector in 2050 or 2100, and in that moment, time collapses. The metal becomes a bridge between eras. That idea alone gives every penny a quiet importance. Even before you think about money, the Lincoln cent is one of the most collected coins in the world. Millions of people have tried to build full sets, from the very first 1909 issues to modern dates like 2010 D. For many collectors, the goal is not just to own a penny, but to own the best possible penny for each year and mint. This creates competition. It creates desire. And it creates value. When you add errors and varieties into the mix, that competition becomes even stronger. A collector might already have a perfect regular 2010 D penny, but if a rare double die version exists, suddenly their set feels incomplete. They want that special coin, the one that stands out. And when only a few exist, people are willing to pay serious money. The stories that form around these coins become legends. A coin found in pocket change. A roll bought from a small-town bank. A discovery made by a child or a beginner. These stories travel far beyond the coin world and inspire others to look. They keep the idea alive that treasure does not only come from faraway places or deep underground. Sometimes it is hiding in the most ordinary places. The 2010 penny also reflects a turning point in how money is used. It was born in a time when digital payments were rising fast, yet it was still part of a physical cash economy. In the future, coins like this may become even more interesting as reminders of how people once paid for things with metal instead of screens. As more pennies disappear from everyday use, more people will save them, intentionally or not. That will change the balance between supply and demand. Even common dates can slowly become harder to find in good condition. This is how the past quietly becomes collectible. So the 2010 1 cent coin keeps moving through time, gathering meaning as it goes. It may start as 1 cent, but it never stays just that. It becomes a memory, a piece of history, a subject of study, and sometimes, if luck and rarity come together, something far more valuable than anyone ever expected. With every passing year, the story of the 2010 1 cent coin becomes richer, not because the metal changes, but because the world around it does. People grow older, collections grow larger, and the memories tied to simple objects become deeper. A penny that was once just part of daily life slowly turns into a reminder of a specific time, a specific era, a specific feeling. There is something powerful about the idea that so much history can be contained in such a small space. The portrait of Lincoln carries the weight of leadership, struggle, and unity. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse stands for memory, respect, and the idea that a nation honors its past. When those two images are placed on a coin like the 2010 penny, they create a symbol that goes far beyond 1 cent. Collectors often talk about eye appeal, which means how a coin looks and feels to the viewer. Two 2010 pennies can be identical in theory, yet one might glow with bright copper color and sharp detail, while another looks dull and worn. That difference can mean everything. Beauty, in the coin world, is value. As technology improves, the way people study coins also changes. High-resolution photography, digital microscopes, and online databases allow collectors to compare their coins with others around the world. A tiny detail that once went unnoticed can now be shared instantly and studied by experts everywhere. This increases the chances that new varieties and errors in the 2010 penny series will be discovered in the future. The market itself is shaped by trust and reputation. A coin that is certified and graded by a respected service carries a guarantee of authenticity. This turns a simple piece of copper-plated zinc into a recognized collectible. For a 2010 penny with a rare error or top grade, that plastic holder and label become part of its identity and part of its value. Even the myths and exaggerated claims play a role. They draw attention. They make people curious. And curiosity leads to searching. Every time someone looks through their change hoping to find something special, the story of the 2010 penny grows a little larger. In the end, this coin is not just about money. It is about the human desire to find meaning, rarity, and beauty in the everyday. The 2010 1 cent coin is a small piece of metal, but it carries a huge story, and that story is still being written every time someone picks one up and wonders if it might be something more. As the long journey of the 2010 1 cent coin continues, it becomes clear that what truly gives it power is not just rarity or metal, but the way it captures attention and imagination. A single penny can turn into a gateway to learning about history, engineering, economics, and even human psychology. People start with curiosity and end up with a deep respect for the complexity behind something that looks so simple. Every 2010 penny was struck by machines capable of producing hundreds of coins per minute, yet each one carries tiny differences. The flow of metal into the deepest parts of the die, the temperature of the planchet, the condition of the steel dies, all of these factors combine to make every coin slightly unique. Collectors learn to read these differences like fingerprints. They can tell whether a die was fresh or worn, whether the strike was strong or weak, whether a coin was handled or left untouched. The world of collecting also brings people together. Online forums, coin shows, and auctions are filled with individuals who share the same fascination. They trade stories, photos, and sometimes even dreams of finding the next big discovery. The 2010 penny, being modern and accessible, becomes a perfect entry point for new collectors. Anyone can afford one, and anyone can dream that theirs might be special. Over time, certain 2010 pennies will gain reputations. A specific error coin might become famous. A highest graded example might become legendary. These individual coins become ambassadors for the entire year in mint, making all 2010 pennies more interesting by association. There is also something poetic about how a coin outlives so much. Governments change, technology advances, and people move on, but a penny can survive for generations. It can be passed from hand to hand, from parent to child, carrying its silent story with it. So even as the world becomes more digital, the 2010 D1 cent coin remains a physical reminder of a time when value was held in metal and history was something you could literally hold. That is why people keep searching, keep collecting, and keep telling the story of this humble yet endlessly fascinating penny. And so the story of the 2010 D1 cent coin comes full circle, returning to where it began, in the palm of a human hand, small, light, and easy to overlook, yet filled with layers of meaning that stretch far beyond its face value. After everything that has been said, after all the talk of minting, errors, condition, markets, and dreams of hidden fortune, what remains is the simple truth that this coin is a piece of time made solid. It was created in a specific year, in a specific place, by specific machines and people, and from that moment on it began a journey that no one could fully control. A 2010 D penny might have paid for a piece of candy, been dropped on a sidewalk, sat in a cash register, or slept for years in a jar. It might have been scratched, polished, or protected. It might one day be thrown away, or it might one day be placed into a collection and studied with care. Every path is possible, and that is part of what makes it fascinating. The idea that a penny could be worth a shocking amount of money, even if that happens only in the rarest of cases, is not really about greed. It is about wonder. It is about the idea that the world still holds secrets, that even in an age of technology and information, something small and ordinary can surprise us. The 2010 D1 cent coin becomes a symbol of that idea. It reminds people that value is not always obvious, that rarity can hide in plain sight, and that history is not only found in grand monuments but also in tiny pieces of everyday life. Collectors will keep searching. New varieties may be discovered. New stories will be told. The market will rise and fall. But the coin itself will remain, unchanged, carrying its portrait of Lincoln and its image of the memorial, quietly waiting to be noticed. In the end, the true worth of the 2010 D penny is not just measured in dollars, but in the curiosity it sparks, the connections it creates, and the way it links the past to the future. A single cent, born in 2010 at the Denver Mint, continues to travel through time, holding within it a story far larger than its size, a story that will never truly end.